Listen to me. Picture this. It is 2026, and you are doing exactly what you have done 1,000 times before. You are cruising down the highway at 60 miles per hour. The sun is setting, the radio is on, life is normal. Then the brake lights flash in front of you, you press the pedal, and in that single moment, your entire reality fractures. The steering wheel doesn't just shake, it convulses. It tries to rip itself out of your hands like some demonic possession. The pedal under your right foot is pulsating, hammering back at you like a jackhammer. Your heart drops into your stomach because every primal instinct in your body is screaming the same thing. The front wheels are about to fly off this car. You are going to die on this highway because of a mechanical failure. You white-knuckle it to the nearest exit. You crawl into the first auto shop you can find, hands trembling, adrenaline still firing. And the man in the polo shirt behind the counter, the one with the clipboard and the practiced sympathetic face, he already knows what he is going to say before he even looks at your car. He has said it 10,000 times. He pulls the wheel off, he points at the silvery disc behind it, and he delivers the line. Your rotors are warped. The heat bent the metal. We are going to have to replace all 4 rotors, all 4 sets of pads, machine the hubs, and while we are in there, we might as well do the brake fluid flush. The quote slides across the counter. $800, sometimes $1,000, sometimes $1,200 if you drive something German. And you, terrified, shaking, remembering that violent vibration on the highway, you nod your head and you hand over the credit card. Because what choice do you have? You can't drive a death trap. Except the entire diagnosis is a lie. It is a beautifully crafted, financially devastating, scientifically illiterate lie that has been recycled through Western auto shops for 40 straight years. Your rotors are not warped. They never were warped. They physically cannot warp under normal driving conditions, and I am going to prove it to you with cold, hard, undeniable metallurgy. The dealerships making billions off your brake panic want you to think cast iron bends like cheap plastic. It doesn't. It's basic friction transfer and metallurgy. But as always, I'm sharing this old-school racing secret for educational purposes, the same way Japanese Touge drivers and Le Mans pit crews have been doing it since before your service advisor was born. Always perform this on a completely empty, dry road with no traffic anywhere behind you, because the technique requires your full attention and aggressive braking inputs. Safety first, scam exposure second. Let's talk about what a brake rotor actually is, because if you understood the metal you are looking at, you would laugh in that service advisor's face. A brake rotor on your average sedan, your Camry, your Civic, your CR-V, your F-150 is a solid disc of gray cast iron, not steel, not aluminum. Gray cast iron, specifically chosen because of its incredible thermal mass, its self-damping vibration properties, and its absurdly high melting point. Gray cast iron melts at approximately 1,150 to 1,200 degrees Celsius. That's over 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. To physically deform that metal, to actually bend it on a molecular level, you need to push it past its yield strength while it is glowing red hot. We're talking temperatures in the range of 650 to 800 degrees Celsius sustained in a localized area while the metal is under mechanical stress. Your brake system, under aggressive normal driving, peaks somewhere between 200 and 400 degrees Celsius. Even towing a trailer down a mountain pass, you might touch 500 or 550 degrees if you really abuse the system. You are nowhere near the temperatures required to warp that disc. Nowhere close. And the disc itself is thick. It's 25, 28, sometimes 30 millimeters of solid iron, ventilated with internal fins for cooling. The thermal mass is enormous. To warp a rotor, you would need to grab it with industrial tongs, heat it in a forge, and bend it with a hydraulic press. Your foot on a brake pedal at a stoplight cannot do this. This is principle number 1. Cast iron does not warp from street driving. Period. End of story. Principle number 2. Brake pads do not work the way the average driver thinks they do. The average person believes that a brake pad is just sandpaper, scraping against the rotor to slow the car down through pure abrasion. That is partially true for cheap organic pads, but on every modern vehicle from 2010 onwards, your braking system relies primarily on what is called adhesive friction. The pad, when heated, deposits a thin, even layer of its own friction material across the entire surface of the rotor. Then, the pad grips against its own material on the rotor. Friction material gripping friction material. It is a chemical molecular bond, not a scraping action. This is why new brakes feel terrible until you drive on them for 100 miles. The transfer layer has not formed yet. Principle number 3, and this is where the scam lives. That transfer layer of pad material, it does not always deposit evenly. Under specific conditions, it deposits in a thick, concentrated, localized lump. And that lump, that microscopic bump of baked friction material, that is what shakes your steering wheel, not bent metal, baked on residue. We will get to the exact mechanism in a minute, but understand the foundation right now. Your rotors are flat. Your rotors are fine. The problem is sitting on top of them, not inside them. If you've ever had a mechanic tell you your metal rotors were warped and you walked out with a bill north of $500, hit the like button right now and let the algorithm know this video needs to reach every single driver who is about to get robbed this week. Drop a comment below telling me the exact dollar amount you were quoted, what shop did it, and what vehicle you drive. I read every single one, and I am building a database of these quotes because the pattern is identical across every region. Subscribe and hit the bell before the brake manufacturing lobby gets this driving technique wiped from the internet, because this video is already being flagged in certain regions. We do this together, or they shut us down individually. Now let's talk about the villain, the Stealership invoice. In 2026, with inflation having absolutely gutted the cost of every single auto part, a standard front brake job at a franchise dealership is averaging anywhere from $650 to $900. A full four-wheel job with rotors and pads, you are looking at $1,200 to $1,600 depending on the make. Add the brake fluid flush they always upsell, that's another $120. Add the caliper service, another $80. Suddenly, your steering wheel shake costs you a mortgage payment. Let's break down where that money actually goes, because the markup is criminal. A pair of OEM front brake rotors for a 2020 Toyota Camry cost the dealership wholesale around $45 to $60 per rotor. They charge you $180 per rotor on the invoice. That's a 300% markup on the parts alone. The brake pads, a wholesale set, runs about $25 to $35. They bill it at $90 to $120. Then comes the labor. They book the job at 2.5 hours per axle. The actual mechanic in the bay, a kid making $22 an hour flat rate, finishes the job in 45 minutes because he has done it 10,000 times. But you, the customer, you get billed for 2.5 hours at $150 to $190 per hour shop rate. So they bill you $475 in labor for 45 minutes of actual wrench time. The math is obscene. They are stealing from you with a smile and a clipboard. And here is the most insulting part of the entire operation. When they pull those rotors off your car, the rotors they just told you were destroyed, bent, warped beyond repair, they often resell them. They send them to a rebuilder who lightly machines the surface, repackages them, and sells them as remanufactured units to chain auto parts stores. Your perfectly good rotors that you paid $800 to throw away are sitting on a shelf at the next town over, ready to be sold to the next victim. It is a closed loop of extortion built entirely on one diagnostic lie. And that lie has a name in the industry. They call it the rotor sell. It is taught in service advisor training programs. There are entire seminars on how to upsell a brake job. The script is rehearsed. The fear is manufactured. The diagnosis is predetermined before you even pulled into the parking lot. So what is actually happening to your car? Let's get into the real science of uneven pad material transfer, because once you understand this, you will never fall for the warped rotor scam ever again. And you will probably save yourself $10,000 over the course of your driving life. Here is the exact sequence that creates a brake judder. You are driving down the highway, you make an aggressive stop. Maybe someone cuts you off, maybe you are coming off a freeway exit a little hot. You press hard on the brakes, the pad clamps against the rotor. The temperature in that contact zone spikes rapidly, sometimes hitting 400 or 500 degrees Celsius in a matter of seconds. The friction material on the pad becomes plastic, almost liquid, in a microscopic layer at the contact surface. Now, here is the critical mistake. You come to a complete stop at a red light, and you keep your foot pressed hard on the brake pedal. You hold it there for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, maybe 2 full minutes while the light cycles through. What is happening at the molecular level is catastrophic. The hot pad with its liquefied surface layer is now clamped stationary against one single spot on the hot rotor. The heat has nowhere to dissipate because the rotor is not spinning. There is no air moving across the surface, so that one spot on the rotor cooks. The pad material, mostly composed of iron, copper, graphite, and various binders, transfers and bakes onto that one stationary contact patch. It does not just stick, it chemically bonds. It crystallizes. The iron in the pad and the iron in the rotor undergo a phase transformation under that heat and pressure, forming an extremely hard, ceramic-like compound called cementite. Cementite is iron carbide, Fe3C, and it is significantly harder than the surrounding cast iron. We are talking about a hardness of 800 to 1000 on the Vickers scale compared to the 200 Vickers of the rotor itself. So now you have a microscopic mountain range of hyper-hard ceramic material baked onto one specific arc of your rotor. The bump itself might only be 5 to 10 thousandths of an inch tall. 5 10,000ths. We are talking 0.0005 to 0.001 inches. Invisible to the naked eye. You could run your finger across the rotor and never feel it. But that rotor is spinning at high speed. At 60 miles per hour, your rotor is rotating at approximately 800 to 1000 RPM. Every single rotation, that bump slams into the brake pad as it passes through the caliper. 800 times a minute, 13 times every second. Each impact transmits a shock wave up the suspension, through the steering knuckle, through the tie rod, through the steering rack, up the steering column, into your hands. That is your earthquake. That is your shaking wheel. That is your $800 quote. A microscopic ceramic bump created by holding your foot on the brake pedal at a red light. Now let's talk about the fix, the cheat code, the thing your dealership prays you never learn. It is called bedding in, sometimes called brake conditioning or brake rebedding, and racing teams have been using it since the 1960s. Japanese mechanics teach it as standard maintenance. Western shops bury it because there is no money in teaching customers a free fix. Here is how it works, and listen carefully because the technique matters. You need a completely empty, straight, dry road. No traffic in front of you, no traffic behind you, no intersections, no driveways, nothing. A back road, an empty industrial area on a Sunday morning, a deserted stretch of rural highway. This is critical. You will be braking aggressively in a way that other drivers will not expect. You accelerate to 60 miles per hour. Then you brake firmly, aggressively, but not in a full panic stop down to 15 miles per hour. You do not come to a complete stop. You do not even touch 10. You pull off the brake at 15, immediately accelerate back to 60, and you repeat the cycle 5 times, 6 times if the judder is severe. What is happening during this process is pure physics. The intense, sustained, continuous friction across the entire rotor surface generates enormous heat, but the rotor is constantly spinning, so the heat is distributed evenly across the entire face. The friction acts like a high-temperature abrasive, scrubbing the cementite bump off the rotor. At the same time, it lays down a fresh, even transfer layer of pad material. The bump gets sanded down to nothing, the surface gets resurfaced for free, in real time, while you drive, after the 5th or 6th cycle, the final, crucial step. You drive normally, gently, for 10 to 15 minutes without coming to a complete stop, if at all possible. Coast through intersections, use engine braking, time the lights. You do this because your rotors are now extremely hot, and if you stop and clamp the pedal, you will create a brand new cementite bump in a brand new location, and you will have wasted the entire procedure. Let them cool with airflow. After that cool-down drive, park the car and walk away. Let it sit for an hour. When you drive it again, the violent shake will be gone, completely gone. The brakes will feel smooth, linear, and progressive. Like glass, for $0, 0 parts, 0 labor. Just driving physics. I have to give you the warning because I am not a reckless person and neither should you be. This technique only works if your rotors are mechanically intact and your pads still have meaningful friction material left on them. If you have ground your pads down to the metal backing plate, if you hear that horrible grinding metal on metal screech, then bedding in will not save you, and you actually do need new parts. If your rotor surface has deep grooves you can catch a fingernail in, or if the rotor is below the manufacturer's minimum thickness stamped on the hub, you need replacement. This is a vibration fix, not a magic wand. And I cannot stress this enough, never ever attempt the bedding in procedure on a road with traffic, with pedestrians, in the rain, or anywhere near intersections. Aggressive braking from 60 to 15 on a public road with cars behind you will get you rear-ended. Find an empty stretch, do it safely, do it once, and then forget your dealership exists for brake work. The $800 shake is a lie, the Cementite is real, the fix is free. Now go drive your car the way Japanese engineers designed it to be driven, and stop funding the people who have been stealing from you. I'll see you on the next